Once again, I'm Doc Rodden, and this is Horror News Radio, the official Gruesome Magazine podcast. Back with me again this week are the scariest, goriest, bloodiest co-host on the net, and tonight we're reviewing Ty West X. X. All right, joining me tonight is award-winning filmmaker Christopher G. Barr.
Bow chicka bow bow.
Nice.
I'll compose anybody's music for either 70 porn films if they're making. No, yeah, I'm doing good. Doing good. It makes me wonder. Maybe I should change my direction of my filmmaking career.
Yeah, what do you think?
So that I can end up dead.
Oh no! All right, let's also welcome special guest host, film committee member for the New York City Horror Film Festival and screenwriter, right? Brian W. Smith. How you doing, sir?
Hello. Thanks for having me. Glad to be back.
I'm glad to have you here. No brown chicken cow, brown cow for you. That's what I grew up with. We couldn't do we had to do it that way. Brown chicken, brown cow. No music? Where's the music, Brian?
Bow chicka wow wow.
There you go.
You made it weird.
I did make it weird. I was
made it weird.
So it was not catch a clue, but catch a cue. But that's all right. It's just me. I'm fine. Oh, Mondays, right? We did this earlier. All right, let's get into this. What we're going to do is review Ty West X. We're going back to 1979, baby, and this is going to be fun. Looking forward to this. We're going to give our oh my God, we're really gonna get into it. We're gonna give our initial impressions. Those will be spoiler free, and then we're gonna get into discussion. And there are plenty of spoilers. There's deaths galore, a couple casting choices, and other things to bring up as we get into it, and that we'll be able to ask. And of course, we'll wrap things up with our final thoughts, our score, a 1 to 5, and our favorite scene. And we hope you enjoy not only this review, but many others that we have on the site. And if you want to help us out, it's easy and free to do. You hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share with a friend, and we will greatly appreciate it. And of course, above all, we'd love to hear your comments down below. What did you think of X? What do you think of Ty West? That's a bigger question. Then.
Exactly. What do you think about his return to the horror genre?
After what, 10 years? Since
just about.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see if his talent holds up. It's an A24 film, so we're missing Dave. That's not a surprise.
Probably a good thing.
No, but I will share he is ill. Changed the seasons, and he got a sore throat, so he has no voice.
Oh no!
So I hope you feel better. Hope you feel better, Dave. Hope you feel better.
A24 got him sick.
You might be right. You might be right.
He gets sick from that elevated horror.
There you go. All this elevation.
Elevated pollen.
When you get elevated at a next film, things go wrong.
More ways than one.
All right, let's look at the card. X from A24, 2022, available in theaters beginning March 18th. The synopsis is: in 1979, a group of young filmmakers set out to make an adult film in rural Texas. Don't ever film an X-rated film in rural Texas. But when their reclusive elderly hosts catch them in the act, the cast finds themselves fighting for their lives. Written and directed by Ty West, the cast includes Mia Goth, Jenna Ortega, Brittany Snow, Kid Cudi. Oh, Brian, help me. Kid Cudi?
It's Kid Cudi or Scott Mescudi, I believe.
Okay, thank you. Martin Henderson, Owen Campbell, and Stephen Ure. Let's get in this. Brian, sir, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What was your first impression of X?
First impression, Ty West is always really good at sort of the throwback style, throwback horror. You can sort of definitely see the influences in this one. Almost right off the bat, even from the trailer. There's a cult horror film from the Mystery Science Theater days called The Touch of Satan that has a killer granny type thing, and that's immediately what I thought of. I think it was like a 1972 film. But he takes the Texas Chainsaw, he takes the Boogie Nights and that whole era, that whole sort of style, and uses that as a jumping off point for creating, probably one of the more interesting, I'd say, conversation starting, gruesome, bloody horror films of the year, I guess. So yeah, it's good performances all around. Good, cast. A lot of familiar faces, but they're doing really good work and some stuff we've never seen them do before. And yeah,
Yeah, true.
once the violence and the gore happens, I mean, it's all pretty matter of fact, and yeah, it's a Ty West film, so
Yep. Might even be a little eaten alive in there hidden.
that's that was the other one. Yeah.
Well,
I was just like, okay, he's not necessarily, he's definitely like influenced by him. I wouldn't say he's like copying them, wholeheartedly.
oh no. Yeah. But it's definitely a lot of Toby Hooper influence in this.
Yeah.
Across the board. All right, Christopher G. Moore, sir. What was your first impression of X?
Or Boogie Nights Massacre.
Boogie Nights Massacre is a great title, man.
That is a good title. Yeah.
I mean, it's basically. And I'll say this is a better, minus the chainsaw. It's a better Texas Chainsaw Massacre film than Texas Chainsaw Massacre was.
Well,
but I'm just saying,
I'm
just
kidding.
based on. Well, I'm just saying based on characters, and I think
true.
I've
I'll give you
I've
that,
always
yes.
said that, like, the especially slasher films or horror films, the best ones are where you have characters you care about. And this one, you have all positive characters that could have easily been just tropish type characters from the sex industry. It's actually very sex positive. I mean, you have all these characters that you kind of care about, and they all have their individual personalities. And I think all the performances are great. When we get to the gore parts, that's great. From what I understand, there's actually a practical alligator they use in the film, so it wasn't like totally CGI fest for that. And I will say, this is a film that I will say I had some kind of issues with just when it comes to the makeup facts with the old couple. That is my main issue with it. But the more I've thought about this film, the more I love it.
Excellent.
Just
Yes.
basically because of the filmmaking techniques that are used within this. Now, he's definitely ingrained in like the 70s type films. There's some what I call the De Palma split screen stuff they use. During, like,
yes.
there's a Landslide by Fleet Mac song that's used where they sing it. That's a beautiful moment in this film. It kind of reminds me of The Conjuring when they have that Elvis. Conjuring 2, I think, when they have the Elvis song or whatever he sings. It's a beautiful moment where all these characters kind of come together and sing together. There's also, of course, the different techniques of showing them shooting like the 70s porn film, then going back and forth between those two. And also, one of the things I thought was so unique, and I don't know if, Brian, if you've seen probably a lot of as many films as we have as well, but there's this really cool, I mean, they already have sort of like the cross-cutting type thing between two different things, showing like the linear things with different characters in the film, and they kind of do that within the De Palma scene. But there's this thing, it's almost like a cross-cutting transition between scenes that happen throughout the movie, where it keeps going back and forth, almost like shades, and it goes back and forth. And at first, when I first saw it, it's like, oh, is something wrong with the film? But then he uses that throughout. I thought, I've never seen that before as a filmmaker. And I'm sure it's probably been used in more experimental things. And I think those kind of touches when it came to the filmmaking really made it different than a lot of these. And I think that's the cool thing about it. He's taken this kind of slasher thing and he's brought us back to those 70s and 80s horror films that had like the sex and the horror and the gore and that kind of stuff. But the filmmaking techniques he brought to life with this really sort of, I hate using the word elevated because it's the thing they always say, elevated horror, but I think it sort of makes it different. It takes these things that we've normally seen and puts it in a different perspective and through a different lens per se. And those filmmaking flourishes, those little things that he did, I think made it really cool. And there's also, I'll say an homage to Psycho that plays into some dialogue early on that I love too. So yeah, I the more I've thought about this film, the more that I love it. I almost went to go see it again yesterday.
Oh, nice.
Because I wanted to take it in more. And I think also if you do go see it, because we're now on sort of non-spoiler right now, just our first impression, but if you do go see it, wait till the end because there's a prequel trailer that happens at the very end for a prequel that he thought about in the process of when they shot it in New Zealand, and when they were waiting to get out of the because they had to wait like I think 2 weeks to get out of the COVID bubble or whatever, so they could start shooting. And he came up with this idea for a prequel so he kept a certain character, and so they shot a prequel, which the prequel has its own visual flair of almost being like a horror film shot in Technicolor. That's just, I mean, so things like that. I don't know. I just love the different the visual palette that he used and the visual techniques he used when it came to the filmmaking in this. I thought was very masterful in taking this slasher genre that we normally associate with. It doesn't have to be crazy shot wise when it comes to slashers, but that extra element sort of made it stand out to me and made me really excited as a filmmaker. That's like, oh, that's kind of cool that we always want to add our own little thing that makes their film different than other people. So anyway, I really love this film.
Yeah, I had a really fun time with this, but I don't know if it brought the scares. It did, even when the horror was full on, I don't know if I was feeling, the gore is great, but I don't know if I was scared. And I kind of missed that. I actually found myself enjoying the slow burn buildup more than the last 30 minutes, in by comparison, because I do think these characters are really kind of wonderful. And, there's a variety of different approaches to the situations they're in, and there's a certain change one character does that we'll get into in the spoilers that brings in a lot of conflict that I thought was interesting. So I found the character Mia Goth plays really interesting. The whole looking in there's a thing where she does this technique where she looks in the mirror and self-affirms, right, kind of thing, and was it kind of like, is it Jack Handy? I forget who does it on SNL, but it's not SNL like, but you know what I'm talking about there. So I don't know. So I'm a little torn with this. I think, Christopher, what I sent to you was after I watched, I was like, yeah, meh. Meh. And I will agree with you, Christopher, that the more I think about it, the more I start liking it. And I do think I want to see it again. I feel like this is a film that will grow on a lot of people over time. I like Ty West. I like a lot of his previous films. I will get into all those in a little bit. I won't waste time here. But so my first impression is I really enjoyed. I like it. I think it's a great movie, but I don't know if it brought the horror the way I wanted it to. It certainly brings the gore and some surprises. Mm. So it's not all bad. I'm not trying to say that at all. But if you compare it to some of the influences like Texas Chainsaw or even Eaten Live, if you want to stay with Tobe Hooper, this probably has more in common with Eaten Alive than it does Texas Chainsaw. I mean, but which is interesting, Christopher, because we did the Texas Chainsaw review a few weeks back, and you never really found the original Texas Chainsaw all that scary, and I did. So it's really interesting going into this. And I'm going to shut up. I'm just going to say I like the movie, but caveats.
Well, and I'm actually I'm also kind of shocked that you say it's not scary, because there's so many scenes full of tension.
Really?
Yeah, because there's a scene
I guess well, I'm saying I didn't have it. There
was scenes where I was nervous for characters. Like there's a scene where Mia Goth's character goes swimming in the water. Mm-hmm. And then later on, when you see a scene that happens in the water, you're like, oh crap. Something's about to happen. And there's another scene with a nail. There's another scene with somebody looking through holes in a barn. I mean, there's so many scenes where I'm like, oh crap, something is about to happen here. And so I felt like I was in my mind, I was crawling up in the fetal position, because I was like, oh, shit's about to hit the fan here, and I don't know when it's going to happen, Or there's a scene out when they're looking out in the swampy area, and I was like, oh shit. Yeah. And they kind of throw you off, I mean, there's like things that. Right. I mean, I don't know. For me, there's a scene. Yeah, there's so many different scenes like that that show that kind of tension that I don't see in a lot of other horror films. Maybe it didn't sell it by the end of it, but for me, I felt that more so than I felt in a lot of horror films I've seen.
Yeah. So just so everybody knows, we're in spoilers now, so we will be dropping some spoilers. Yeah. So by contrast, I was waiting for that moment that you were finding all along. I was like,
oh, okay.
When they were in the water and my eyes were rolling, and they're in the barn, my eyes were rolling. You know, I was kind of like,
I thought the water scene was pretty good.
What's that? The water scene?
The first one with Mia Goth, because it's so quiet.
Oh, when it's overhead?
Yeah.
Oh god.
Oh, I was like,
it's like in Jaws territory.
I was about to laugh my ass off in a theater that was very quiet. Nobody screamed I was surprised. There was actually a fair amount of people watching the film on a Sunday afternoon. But nobody was screaming. Nobody was having any remarks to it. And maybe that hurt my experience. But yeah, I think the only time there was one time that there was one creepy scene, and that's the old lady looking through the window. For some reason, that got me. I thought the old lady in the bed was ridiculous. I think I was more creeped out about her hiding under the bed during a scene, but that was for a different reason. But there's a scene where one character tries to escape running out the front door, and that
well, that's like, I think that's where the comedy starts setting in. Like
that was at the very end. There wasn't anything else
there's like a 1, 2, 3 punch of comedy towards it. Like by the end, it's just sort of like I was laughing. You know,
well, I mean, but I enjoyed the
mocking way. It was just like I got his humor. He was doing that for shock value, but also humor.
Well, it was on purpose, and I mean, I like those moments because I mean, even when there's like a tension between. There's like There's one scene where Kid Cudi's character comes to the door.
Well, that was hilarious. That was.
It's subtle. Like, it's done so
it's subtle, but it's like that normal scene where he's talking to the person, you think something's going to happen, but then there's a visual joke there that I laughed out loud, and because they keep talking about it, then you see it's like but yeah, I mean, and I think that's the cool thing is there's moments where there is humor, but then there's also uncomfortableness. There's also drama. I mean, it has a mixture of those type of things throughout. Although, I mean, I guess in some ways you probably could take away like they're trying to make it seem like all old people are just icky people, and it's all about the young people.
See, that's the problem. I don't think
that's where I think where the conversation can start. I wasn't at like any Q&As or anything for this. It just played at South by, I think, but yeah, it's a film about how the young are sort of taking over the old space and the older are threatened. And, you know, normally in the old days, it's like, oh, we just have to kill them. But no, these people, like, she wants in on it. So it's like, it's a whole new sort of twist on that idea. And the fact that, I don't know if there's a certain irony in the fact that they hired the same young actress to play the old woman as opposed to just hiring an older woman. Is that a commentary?
Well, okay, so yes, it is. It absolutely is. So that's the point to me. That's the point of the story. It's that they're living the life that she once had and still wants, and having the same actress play both characters ties that thread together. You know, because she sees her, she's the one that, you know, appeals to her. She's the one that she wants to be. And ironically, she is that person, and she was that person. Her past, when they talk about her past. So that, to me, that was the whole theme of the story. Was, you know, the old people can't, you know, it's his thing too, right? He can't get it up anymore. He can't if they have sex, he'll have a heart attack, right? Which he ends up doing, but a totally different reason. So I found that aspect of it far more interesting than the horror aspect. I found the conversations that they were having, especially, I think you mentioned it, there was a conversation where after they filmed for a day and it's night and they're all in a circle in the living room, and it's right before they sing the song, or maybe it's after when Brittany Snow sings it. But they're having this conversation about, you know, what the business is, and, you know, what they call her, church mouse, right? The church mouse. And she makes a decision. I thought that was very interesting, and I liked his the directors in the film, the Jenna Ortega's boyfriend, who has the camera throughout the film, his reaction to her wanting to get involved, I thought was really interesting for this character to take that route. You know, it made sense and it was played out really well, and he did a really good job at it. And the conversation that he has with Matthew McConaughey Jr. Sorry,
I saw him as like if Matthew McConaughey mated with Luke Wilson.
Well, yeah. Oh my
I-
God, you're so
his-
right.
his-
You're so
his-
right.
It was
Martin
sort of like
Henderson,
his
Martin
face.
Henderson.
Yeah, his face kept like shifting. I was like, "That's not Matthew," but who is
Whoa,
that?
you're so
Well, I know
right.
when I saw the trailer, I was like, Luke Wilson is in this.
I was thinking
Because
Matthew
he
McConaughey.
comes off very Luke Wilson,
Yeah.
but he has that Matthew McConaughey
I
accent or something. It was
all
kind of
Texans look like
it's kind of
them,
weird.
so.
Well, I think I mean there is
Oh.
there's a lot of different underlying themes in this, which I like, and especially as a filmmaker, because you think about it, and actually Ty West talked about this, that this porn crew is almost like low budget indie horror filmmakers. You know, you think about it, it's like nobody cares about the story, they care about the kills, you know. I mean, that's basically, and the kills are the sex of this, and so you have that aspect of it. And also, it takes place in 1979, and I actually pointed it out, like they're on the cusp with like the home video
They did. I like
revolution. And so if you think about it in the same way, Boogie Nights was all about like these filmmakers thought they were making art, and then it becomes more about the sex on video, so then it does become more about that than the story. So you have that aspect, and you also have the aspect of like where this older lady, she wishes that kind of porn story would happen in her life, you know, and they have that nice little crust cutting scene where they're shooting the porn film where she gives them lemonade, and then the old lady gives Mia Goth lemonade. And so you have that kind of correlation between those two things where the old lady kind of wishes this kind of thing would happen to her. And so there's a lot of really interesting underlying themes to this that take it above and beyond your normal slasher films where you don't have that. Most slasher films like, oh, you killed my mom, so I'm going to chop you everybody up. So this one has more of that. And you also have like you have the freedom of these young people that are free to have their sexual revolution and do these type of things. And you have this older lady who's throughout her life, she's probably been restricted about that, you know? And so, yeah, there's a lot of interesting underlying themes to this that seep into the storytelling and even the filmmaking aspect of it that I really love. And I guess my only issue is like, as much as I love all the great gore and kills and stuff, I really felt the makeup for the older couple, it just felt fake. It felt, and as much as I think Mia Goth did a really great job, because we're already in spoilerville, she played the older, she actually plays the older lady, which actually, if you see, there's the one scene where she see pictures, you can see the one picture looks like Mia Goth, so it's kind of obvious. But she does a really great job sort of like portraying it, but I think the makeup kind of gave it away. It just felt like people in old makeup, and that kind of bothered me. And it almost made me feel like, and I think we had a little bit of discussions before, Brian, but like I kind of wish they just got old people to play old people. It just accentuated that, as opposed to, because I mean, even if you're doing a prequel with Mia Goth playing the young version of that, you could still do that. But I kind of wish they just gotten old people to play those parts instead of just, because then it just feels, especially after seeing the Batman where you get Colin Farrell playing, you know, this great character that you don't know he's inside there. This one just felt like this is a young, there's
small
a young
budget difference between these two films, but yeah,
there is a big budget difference. But also this is done by Weta Workshop, the people who did Lord of the Rings and stuff.
Oh, well, you think they do it?
Who did great on the gore, because I'm sure they don't get to do that very much.
Yeah.
But that was the one thing that, like,
because I wondered after the film, especially like if they had hired, like, you know, Rob Zombie did Lords of Salem, where he's got like, you know, Meg Foster and all these other older women that, you know, that are fine with like dancing around a circle, you know, with no clothes on and stuff. I wonder if they could have hired someone, if they hired like a character actress to just come and play the role, would it have been even creepier not because then all through the film you're thinking, oh, that's just a younger actor playing this creepy old lady who's like creeping on Mia Goth. But if it were an actual woman of age or older woman, I think it would like some even the woman that played like Deborah Logan. I don't know if she's in hiding now or not doing movies anymore, but she's great with like makeup and playing like older characters. I think it would have been interesting to bring
Yeah,
someone.
yeah.
Well,
The only
they
thing
would
that
they would
the only thing
they
that
would
saves
bring.
it.
Go ahead.
Sorry, the only thing that saves it for me is the thematic connection between Pearl and Maxine. That it's supposed to be. She's supposed to be another version of her, right?
Right,
Not like she's a duplicate, but her younger self is exact same kind of person that Maxine is today, and that
right.
that connection, having her play both, I like that aspect. But I think you're right, Christopher. I'm thinking that the one reason I wasn't ever really finding any scares is because I may not have been scared of these two people in old makeup
And I think
or the
and
goofy
not
alligator.
not to say a younger actor can't play those type of roles, but I really feel like if you brought somebody, like a Barbara Crampton or somebody in the horror genre who's a
Well,
little
Meg
bit
Foster is
older,
a good idea. She would have been great.
yeah, or anybody, I think they might have brought more to that role.
Hmm.
That could have that wouldn't have to depend so much on just trying to overage a younger person to do that. And I maybe one day we'll get to that after seeing the effects stuff in Batman. Of course, they had a bigger budget, but if there's a way to do that, but to me, it's just like I think that it was almost like the uncanny valley thing that we see in the CGI stuff.
Oh,
Like,
interesting. Yeah.
it felt uncanny to me because it just felt like a younger person trying to
Then
portray that.
then again, it does kind of stay within like I guess Ty West's commitment to. Oh my God, who's the woman in Mary Warrenoff? Where's she these days? Like she was in House of the Devil. Like I'd love to see her in more
Oh,
things.
now she played that part.
If she played that part, that would be an Oscar. That would be a Chainsaw Award, a Ronda Award. Let's
Yeah,
like
I mean,
break her back. But yeah, I think he's staying within that 70 that era, that throwback, because you know his work, his films are authentic. Like I see a lot of throwback films on the festival circuit and that sort of thing, and he never calls attention to being a throwback. It just simply is. It's the same thing when someone does like an 80s film or whatever. You just simply are the thing. You don't have to call attention to, hey, we're in an 80s film or hey, we're in a 70s film. He's just doing the thing. So I wonder if because that era there were movies where you would cast a younger person to play, you just have that sort of cheesy makeup. If that's what he's going for, then I could see that side of it. But I think in terms of like a real effective version of it, and you can't remake the movie, but a real effective version, obviously, I would think would have been like all these names that we're dropping in terms of like bringing in someone with the history, with some sort of real history in their eyes and their face to play this role. It would have been I think a great role. Same thing when they cast a thin person to play a overweight person. It's like there's plenty of overweight actors out there that are looking for work. Just go out there and take it. I don't know.
I'm not an actor, but I am overweight.
But I wonder if it was. But I also wonder if it was his. Maybe we're reading too deep into it in terms of like how even in a film about that sort of comments on older versus older versus younger sexuality. It's like he still went with a younger actors.
Well,
You
I'm
know,
going to go back to it. I think the casting choice in this case for at least Pearl was part of his plan.
right.
I mean, there was a reason for him to do that particular casting.
Mhm. I mean, yeah, she's not even credited in like the character's not even credited in the end.
Right. You have to.
I
You have to look
missed.
into
I
it.
was.
You have to look into it.
Yeah.
But real quick, let's talk about the cast: Mia Goth, Brittany Snow, Jenna Ortega are the female leads. Kid Cudi, Martin Henderson, and Owen Campbell play the male leads as far as the crew, and then Stephen Ure plays Howard, the husband to Pearl. But the young cast, I really liked. I thought they did a great job. I thought Brittany Snow, was fantastic. Mia Goth was fantastic. I wasn't as impressed with Jenna Ortega really until she did that turn, and then once she did that, I was like, oh, okay, I get why she's in this. And then I thought the male cast was really good too. I really, these aren't characters that you would think you would root for. They're not characters you would think you'd get behind, right? But at the same time, you absolutely do. They're they're not two-dimensional. They're not these flat characters. They're not tropes. They're not, even if they have some elements of that in them, I felt like they were real characters. They were really well written and really well acted, I thought.
Well, I mean, when you're dealing with characters that could easily just be like characters of the porn industry, they can almost be those amped up sort of Boogie Nights type characters that you normally see, or that people always make fun of in movies in general.
Yeah. And these are easy targets to do that.
Yeah, easy targets, but they're all, again, they're all very positive. They're not, none of them are really that negative. I mean, there's some negative things that happen because you do have that sort of issue that happens between the guy and his girlfriend, who's at first is a prude, and then she's like, well, maybe I'll try this out and stuff. And and then he's got to deal with that. He's like, oh yeah, it's all acting. But then when you have somebody that you're close to, it changes the subject. So yeah, I kind of like that. And I think for me, I definitely got a lot from it. Just somebody who's a filmmaker and works with all these different people and or even like how sometimes people are like, well, you're making horror films, you must be a sicko, or I've shot like sex scenes and people looked at me weird, so I kind of can relate to and sympathize with the characters in
I
this.
can see that. Yeah.
Also I can sympathize with the feeling old and feeling like all these young people get all these cool things now. Back in my day, they had to shoot stuff on film, and now you can film it on your phone. And it seems like the young people can reap the benefits, and everybody's so open sexually. So I can understand that part of it as well. And how you could you could feel like these young people, and sometimes you wish you were in their shoes. You wish you could go back and be of this new generation and have more opportunities that some people have. So yeah, there's a lot of really cool things in this. But yeah, I think all the actors, I feel like Jenna Ortega is like in every horror film.
She is. Scream. She doesn't scream.
I was just reminded she's playing Wednesday.
She's playing Wednesday.
So I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Because she was also in Studio 666. I mean, she's
wow.
Was she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
That's right. She was the demon girl from the past.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So,
Look at her go.
It's kind of weird. I see her popping up and all these. It's like, does she have time to breathe?
Well, I know she went straight from Scream to this movie. So.
Oh wow. Well, yeah, I mean, and it's a little bit of a different character. So.
Different hand, I guess.
Different
hand to get to.
Well, and again I love that we have like the straight horror stuff, but then you have there's a gag involving your underwear that I laughed out really loud about.
Oh right.
But yeah, and
it's all subtle. It's all true to the characters. It's true to the era that ties. That he's. It's never winking. It's never judging the characters. It's just this is who they are. This is what they do. It's never like sort of poking at this is you know what I mean. It's like he's really good with that style of the throwback where he's just very authentic to
he gives them a lot of time to breathe. Well, I mean that's his thing, right? The slow burn he gets to establish and really get into these characters.
And I think
I like that.
Although they should have seen Texas Chainsaw by then, so they should have known.
Probably. You're giving more movie logic to people that don't understand those type of things. But it's sort of like when people don't use the word zombie in films. But yeah, I mean, and I will say Mia Goth, I think she gives probably the big stand-up performance, at least for me. I'd say she's very mesmerizing in certain scenes in this, and it kind of makes me really look forward to see the prequel and see how she kind of embodies that younger version of the old character in this film. Because there's just moments where she's just doing normal stuff, and there's I don't know, I like the dialogue in this film too.
I do too.
It's the conversations that people have and just their thoughts. I love the Mia Goth, her sort of like she's almost like the early version of what people have their mantra and stuff. How if you speak, you make it happen type mentality that people have nowadays. It's very prevalent on social media. I even do that myself. There's certain words and phrases you use. They have it in like TikTok videos where like, use this as the background music and it'll come true or whatever. So she has that thing where like, I'm going to be a big star, type thing where you see those type of things where young people are wanting to make it big in Hollywood and stuff. So I don't know. There's a lot of things that I see Ty West sort of tying into films that he's seen as he's been influenced and putting his spin on that. But yeah, I love the cast is great. The script is great. The gore is great. There's like a lot of great things in this film to really love. Evidently, there are some people that have been negative about it. So you always have that, no matter what you do now.
I think we need the sequel where
they found the footage.
Where Maxine actually becomes a star and then snaps. I want to ask one last question, Brian, to you before we wrap up, because we're actually going over, but I think for this movie it's fine. One thing that I struggled with was, while I kind of got it, what was really the motivation for Pearl to snap and start killing people?
Well, do you think she felt rejected ultimately and by the Owen Campbell's character? Is that his name? I think she just maybe felt rejected, and she wanted to live free, and maybe she was just always kind of a low key psycho, and her sexuality and the violence just sort of tie together. I'm spitballing here, but I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think we could all kind of go down a road to get to something like that, but I'm not sure the film told me.
Well,
it's like I said, it's very Touch of Satan. If you ever see that, it's the killer granny she kills everyone with like.
Well, I think they did kind of spell it out, because they had the Bohemian guy that was tied up in the basement.
It's a thing. It's a thing.
Okay, yeah. So they were establishing this as a pattern because they also get the Volkswagen and the
because the guy
nice little. There's a couple psycho nods, right?
Well, the guy only told him. The only guy only told him he was by himself, so they didn't know that whole group of people were coming there. So they probably thought they were going to get another person to replace the person in the basement. That maybe she was using her sexual.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because was that like
in a twisted way, of course, but that does make sense. Yeah.
I mean that's the way I saw it, at least played out, because the guy had his pants around his ankles.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, there's also some full frontal around there too. So there is stuff there. I didn't get from A to Z with it, but that's fine. That's my problem. All right, let's get into this. Let's get into our final thoughts, our score 1 to 5, and our favorite scene. Brian, you sir are up first.
I feel a little generous. I guess I'll give it just because I would like to see more. I like this slasher boom that we're on now, and I want to see more less subtle horror. So I'll give it a 4 for the techniques and stuff. And Christopher, you mentioned the editing and the cross cutting. I think I have seen, again, it's a touch of Satan thing. I think I have seen that kind of cross cutting editing in that, and like even some of the old, like, I think it was the Daughters of Darkness trailer. If you look that up, there's like a lot of the old 42nd Street horror movie trailers have that sort of 70s style. But I think my favorite scene towards the end is the kickback shotgun that breaks Pearl's hip.
Oh my God! Okay. Remember I said the crowd didn't make a lot of noise in my theater?
Yeah,
they did then. Everybody died.
So. I mean, you kind of have to. Yeah, it's like I said. It's in the span of that one scene. There's like 3 really good laughs, really good chuckles, but that one was like, okay, because I assumed it was going to go sideways for Mia's character, but it did not. So I was happy with that.
Well, which Mia?
Oh, right, that's young Mia. A typical 70s ending is always like usually a downer, and this one, I mean, it was gruesome till the end, but at least at least someone can live to tell about it. But yeah, that moment was pretty funny. So that's my favorite moment.
Yeah, that is a great moment. I like that. I'm glad you mentioned that one. All right, Christopher, you're up next. Your final thoughts, your score, your favorite scene.
This film made me trying to research film techniques, and I'm going to look at those movies you mentioned, Brian, because I figured that you have a more expansive knowledge of horror films than I probably do, and so I'm going to definitely be looking those up, because I think that's the one thing I really came away from this film thinking about, is just these different techniques he used to sort of tell the story and what influenced him to create that. Because I don't know. I mean, I would assume that he didn't come up with those techniques on his own, or if he did, brilliant, but I would assume it's probably based on something else that somebody else did. And the 70s were a very lucrative time when it came to not lucrative, but just a creative time for creating all kinds of weird stuff, film wise. And so, but yeah, I really love this film. That definitely has that look of like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre type stuff, but has really cool characters that you kind of care about, and they're very interesting, and it doesn't play into the tropes of like porn films and that kind of stuff, and
doesn't
the
shy
way
away from it either.
it doesn't shy away from it. Although I had some people saying, "Oh, it's very sexually explicit," and I was like, I didn't really.
I found it kind of tame, actually.
I did too, and so I was like, actually,
I don't know if I'm just a freak, but I
guess
tame.
because I've seen stuff I've seen stuff recently. It's like the movie Fresh, they show like a picture of a heart on and stuff. So I'm like, okay. So this felt kind of tame, and granted, not to say that we don't get pictures, we don't full penis views and stuff. We do get that, but the sex stuff really wasn't. It's no different than films I've seen.
It's more done. It's more handled like a job. It's not done to be like really tittillating. It's just
no. It's not like one of those things where it's just like, we need to focus on this lady's nipple for 5 minutes.
They keep calling it an erotic thriller, and I was like, it's more of just a horror film.
I mean, it's part of it. Although I did read a review where people were walking out of the theater when the sex stuff happens, and I was like, but it's not one of those things where it's done ickily or done in a way that's and unlike a lot of horror films, the sex aren't the real horror part, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you're Friday the 13th, it's all about, because you always think about slashers like, if you have sex you die, and I guess in some ways you could say that, but
they do
nobody has, nobody's like having sex and gets killed in the process of it. It's just part of why they're there. So anyway, I really loved it. I love the visual techniques that are done in this film that I can't stop thinking about after watching this. And I think that's the kind of impression you have. In fact, I'll stop ranting and I'm going to repeat. This is Ty West actually sent out a thing. I get the A24 emails.
Oh, nice.
And he talked about the making of it. And I love this little bit he talks about because it kind of reflects on me as a filmmaker. He says, X is a violent slasher movie set in the late 1970s about an eclectic group of young people making a pornographic film. Historically, horror and pornography have always had a bit of a symbiotic relationship. Two forms of lowbrow entertainment that can be made independently outside of the traditional Hollywood studio system. What is often overlooked, however, is the wildly ambitious entrepreneurial spirit that accompanies trying to make these types of films and craft them as well. As a fellow movie lover, this is my tribute to that spirit. I hope you enjoy the ride. Well, Ty West, I enjoyed the ride. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to the prequel. My only problem is with the old people makeup. That really bothered me, but the more I think about it, the more my rating is raised. I'm gonna give it a 4.5 out of 5.
Oh, nice.
It's one of my favorite films I've seen this year, just primarily in the filming techniques, the company of actors, the dialogue, all that stuff works really well. And also just finding out that they actually made a practical alligator. They had 3 different types of alligators. They had one that they could actually make the tail move in the water and stuff. And I was like, it's like Jaws, So as for working, and as for, yeah, and I know, except it worked probably a little bit better than Bruce did. But I'll say my favorite scene, as somebody that can relate to, like, I'm making art, is the director dude, and because there's a conversation they have where they talk about the girlfriend like calls him out on like Psycho or something, and they talk about that, and then when he gets killed, it's an homage to Psycho with the knife, the cutting between the two, but it's more like if Hitchcock could actually show somebody getting stabbed a million times. And just the spraying of the blood on the light of the car,
Turning
where
everything red.
and they just
That was
basically
awesome.
just a red filter for the whole end part of that.
And I think I think that's how she dies in the book too. I think it's much more gruesome than Hitchcock. I think it was like a near beheading.
Yeah, and I think because you have like a person who's actually an old person, or I guess in some ways it's kind of like Psycho because it's a young person, there's a makeup, but because it's an old lady killing, it's very Psycho-ish. So I like that homage to Psycho, but putting his own little spin on that, and it with being related to something earlier. I love that. So, and of course, as a filmmaker whose favorite film is Psycho, that'd probably be the way you want to go out, right?
There you go.
Or maybe not. But anyway, that's my favorite scene.
And
I like
don't fear the Reaper playing too.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and another, I think I said it earlier, another called Psycho was the car half sunken in the bog. So.
Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of homages to early horror films in this. Good stuff. I've given this movie a little bit of poop going through this, but I'm finding that I've really enjoyed a lot of aspects to it, and this conversation has helped me realize how much I really did enjoy it. I think where the makeup didn't bother me, it's just the lack of. I wasn't scared. I wanted to be a little bit more. I wanted to, I wanted my adrenaline pumping a little more, and I didn't quite get that. So that's really my only thing, and I think if I watch this movie again without even having that as a concern, I'd probably enjoy it a hell of a lot more. I'm giving it a 4 still. And at this point, so it's early in the year. I expect I'll be able to see this again if I don't go to the theaters, and it'll be streaming by the end of the year, I would expect. And I will expect that I will probably be talking about this in December of the year. I imagine it'll be maybe number 10. There's a joke in there somewhere. Wow, I'm gonna give up. All right, yeah. Thank you, Brian, for throwing the obvious back in my face. My favorite scene. I deserve that. Thank you. My favorite scene. What do I want to choose as my favorite scene? Because there's a lot of fun stuff. Gosh. So Brian, you chose the one with the hip, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which was actually fantastic. So I'm going to go just a few minutes earlier. Let's get out of here. Run through the door and boom. And then when she coughs later, and
that's what does it.
And then I mean, it was just like that. He falls over dead. It was fantastic. But yeah, I'm going to go with that. That was a lot of fun. Oh man, I don't know. One last thing. We should shut up and get out of here. But did you guys like the idea that they started off with the police showing up and we get to see all the covered bodies, so we know where people should be, or at least some? And were you finding yourself wondering, when am I going to see that? When am I going to see that?
I didn't mind it. I like that, and I was kind of wondering where things are gonna happen, but things end up happening so fast that you're like, oh, okay, that's where that happened. But I think by the end, I was like, who's gonna end up where? But
right.
Yeah,
it didn't bother me. I'm not implying that it did. Yeah, I was just wondering if it bothered anybody else.
You have to set it up because it's such a slow burn. I think he had to set it up that it's gonna get messy. 24 hours,
Yeah, because of the blood dragging you through the door. Like, how that happened, right? So,
well, I think it's because it was so non-specific, because there was stuff covered with things they didn't really show.
They didn't show who.
Much, they just had the element of it. Although I did another thing that I wouldn't even talk about. I love how we have that final connection with the preacher in the TV.
Oh yeah! Oh my god! I forgot about that.
So the whole time you're like, oh, is this just because this guy's talking about like sin and stuff? If it's just about that, but then you find out, oh, there's more to that.
No, there is.
Oh, that's a nice little way to sort of like do that. And plus, I just love the thing they used in the trailer. It was like, this is some goddamn horror show, whatever he says.
Yeah.
I do love that delivery of that line at the very end. But yeah, I kind of like that. I like that sort of structure to it. Again, that's part of that whole overarching cross-cutting with things that
Mhm.
I think, as somebody who also edits stuff, I wish I had that kind of sensibility when it comes to creating stories, because I don't know if I have the mindset to do that even when I write scripts. But I kind of wish I could venture out and be adventurous like that.
Mm. Yeah, and I like the music choices too, like you were saying.
Oh yeah.
With, Go Fear the Reaper, and there was a lot of other choices.
Well, even
too.
just that
Totally like
I mean, that beautiful song that when Brittany Snow does that song with the landslide where she's singing it,
It does a great
it's
job.
a really beautiful rendition of that.
Yep.
And I'm sure there's someone out there saying, "Hey, that's a modern song," not knowing.
Yeah, I know. And that's funny.
The minute that song played, the minute she started singing, I was like, I don't know why my mind immediately went to some critic or some know-it-all out there.
some newbie out there.
Yeah, thinking, hey, that's the Dixie Chicks or something. Or the Chicks as they're called.
Or like it's Miley Cyrus's song.
Exactly.
All right, let's go ahead and get out of here. At 50
Yeah.
minutes. This is our review for X, Ty West X. Just the title X throws me. But anyway, it's out in theaters now, which is great that it's only in theaters, and I'm glad people are going back to theaters. And it did, for an A24 film, it did fairly well. So congratulations to Ty West and his film. Check the film out when you can, and leave us some comments down below. Brian, thank you for joining us. Christopher, thank you for joining me as always. Looking forward to the next one, sir.
Yeah, see the film, get inspired, enjoy.
Maybe we'll come back and talk about the movie Pearl whenever that comes
Definitely.
out.
Definitely. I wonder, is it going to be a horror film too?
Looks like it.
Well, if you stay for the end credits.
I didn't stay for the end credits.
Send them the link. Send them the trailer. Yeah.
Oh, send me the link. Yes. All right, guys. Let's get out of here. Let's say goodnight.
Good night.
Yeah.